All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Hearing. I am really excited to be joined today by Sam Falk, who is the co-founder and CEO of FemtoSense. This is now the second time I've been able to interview the team over at FemtoSense. Last time it was Jonathan Russo. Today it's Sam. So, Sam, why don't we kick it off with a high-level overview of FemtoSense? Just kind of walk the audience through your company, how it was sort of, what the genesis behind it was, and then, what you all have been working on these last few years.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, really looking forward to not just talking about FemtoSense and the AI stuff that we do, but also, of course, how it impacts, this world in hearing. I think it's a very interesting time and place to be in, as a market coming from CEO. But yeah, about FemtoSense, we're all about basically making AI possible to embed into these everyday devices like, hearing aids or earbuds, headsets, et cetera, right? And so we sell an AI chip, which makes AI very efficient when you run it. We have a whole platform built on top of it to make it easy to develop, for the product developers who want to sort of define that experience using this new big old hammer of AI. And then I guess now we're very soon about to launch with some of our partners some full-on solutions, especially in the hearing health market. But we started basically coming out of Stanford University 2018. We had been working on AI and AI silicon and hardware for our PhDs since 2011. And it was just a very good time to basically start a company in the AI space, right? We had a differentiated way of building AI that was very sort of biomimetic. It was called neuromorphic engineering. It's very close to how your actual brain works, and so it could be very efficient because we're operating on like a few cookies worth of energy and not nuclear power plants worth of energy. So there's clearly something going on that is something to be learned, and that really matters because if you're talking about the hearing world, we're talking probably about headsets, earbuds, hearing aids, right? All those kinds of products are very sort of power constrained. Like you care about how efficiently you can do. It's really about how much processing or how much value can you, of course, deliver to the customer in terms of the hearing experience. But it has to, of course, satisfy all these constraints of battery and heat and all sorts of things. So there was a great alignment between, the technology that we have developed at our company and kind of this product category of hearing products. So yeah, our core technology is all about sort of squeezing out as much unnecessary math as possible of these AI algorithms. So it's actually very relevant these days. So we see it coming out of of China, right? There's new ways to do AI that are very efficient, and that's really sort of turning the industry upside down. And to us, this is actually not that surprising, right? That there are better ways to do AI that are more efficient than just sort of brute forcing it and just scaling up, because we've been operating in these sorts of product environments for such a long time. Like the hearing aid is very different from a data center. um, and so, yeah, if you can basically say in your AI algorithm, here's what you need to do, here's what you don't need to do, right? And then you zero out what you don't need to do, and you only deploy silicon and energy for the non-zero parts. Then that's what we think is a pretty good recipe for delivering these features to these product categories.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, whenever I think about this world of hearing aids and consumer earbuds and all that, it just seems like one of the most it's kind of like the frontier in some ways of like the most hardcore engineering that there really is, from the standpoint that you really only have a finite amount of real estate, in a hearing aid or whatever, where it's like one of the smallest sorts of products, I guess, that is packing such a large punch. And so, to your point, it's like, just these last 2 days, I think the whole world has been sort of turned on its ear with news around DeepSeek and, how that's really like just set this huge shockwave across companies like NVIDIA and all that, which if you're a hearing healthcare provider, like, how does this, relate to me? How is this relevant? And
Yeah.
I think the reality is that, what I think we need to be thinking about is that in many ways, like hearing aids and consumer technology like earbuds and that are kind of like an arena for some of the most cutting edge ways in which to sort of address these major hurdles that I guess are more prominent in these tight quarters than maybe anywhere else, right? So in some ways, I think that hearing healthcare might actually be kind of on the forefront of innovation because of how applicable I think it is given the constraints of the environment that you're operating in.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the part of the story of the whole, deep seek innovation. It was, there's a storyline that goes because there were these constraints of, no access to the latest and greatest, most powerful processors. They had to be, frankly, more creative, right, and more innovative on on the algorithm side, and they found ways to make much better use of the resources they had. And similarly, I think you see exactly the same kind of dynamic in the hearing aid world. It's because it's by necessity. You only have maybe, 15 milliamp hour battery, maybe 24 milliamp battery, 16, whatever, but it's very small, right? And so the question is like, okay, so AI and this neural processing, it's supposed to be sort of the next big thing after, what was the previous one? Digital signal processing, like DSTs, right? That was a huge sort of step forward for the hearing aid world, right? And that was like, 30,
One
40 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, it was a long time ago, right? And there's a lot that technology can do, but of course it's still limited, right? So when it comes to the experiences, the features that people want from their hearing devices, like they want to be able to, you know, enjoy restaurant conversation like they did back when they were 20 or 30, right? Without hearing not just the person they're talking to, but everything in the background, right? That is a pretty hard problem from a pure just signal processing perspective because, it's not like, the sound's always changing. Nothing is stationary, right? And here's where potentially this AI technology can really come in and actually like solve that problem. Whereas before, we had sort of ways to try to do it, but you look at part of the big question is like, well, why aren't hearing aids more prevalent, right? Why is it only let maybe hearing loss is like 1 in 10, but then even of that 1 in 10 in the population, another 1 in 10 are the only ones who actually have it, right? Is there's a clear uh, there's a clear bar that we're not meeting for a lot of the potential customers, right? So there's a huge market if you can do it,
Right.
and so yeah, this is the idea, right? You have this new technology, AI. You have these new approaches. We're coming in with sparse AI, and so together we can actually deliver these features. Which there's a clear opportunity for when you do the market analysis and when you say, okay, well, why aren't people when you talk to the customers, why aren't you satisfied with your product? Like if there's something it could do that it doesn't do, what would it be? And yeah, now is the time to do that.
So can you kind of help the audience understand from your perspective, like, what exactly is sort of transpiring right now with the call for like the maturation of this? As you cited, you kind of had this big step change in the 90s that was the introduction of the DSP chips. And then now you're kind of describing this next step change. Kind of walk us through, because I'm always trying to kind of wrap my head around like, where are we in this transition? um, what are some of the kind of fundamental, breakthroughs happening on that foundational level, that are, basically going to be the catalyst to ushering this era and this new wave of technology in?
Yeah, well, this is largely around the more sort of the dividing line might be between sort of the classical signal processing that you would do on something like a DSP, where it is all heavily math based, even the old and the nukes. So I'm not going to say it's not math based, but it's very you have a very strong sort of definition at the mathematical level. It's like, okay, I'm going to have these filters. Maybe they're adaptive, maybe they're not. It's going to do certain things to the various frequency bands and maybe have some statistical model that it builds up over time. But all those are very sort of low level, right? And um, in some ways limited in the amount of sort of operations and math that they do. And what's available now is like, well, now we can do a lot more math. So what do we do with this math, right? I can't sort of write down like equations of exactly what I want to do, but I can do a lot of math. And so I set up other ways of configuring the hardware that I do have. And this is through the learning process that AI is sort of introduced, right? Where instead of saying, here's the frequency bands, or decompose the frequency bands, here's what to do with each frequency band, it's like, well, okay, decompose the frequency band, and here's the examples of what I want, and here's the examples of what I don't want. And through this AI, training, this learning or back propagation methods, uh, please configure the system accordingly, right? So because we can do a lot more math, and because we have these sort of example-based approaches of sort of teaching it what to do, this allows us to enable those features that are just a little bit more human meaningful, right? Like I can play you a clip of a noisy restaurant. I can play you a clip of maybe the clean speech that should have been plucked out of there, and I just say, hey AI algorithm, please do this, right? And if I showed enough of those examples, it through this teaching and learning process uh, can do the task, right? And really, so that part is pretty well established now in the sort of AI research space. And what's the unique wrinkle when it comes to the hearing space is like, okay, well, how do you now make that very efficient? And so this is where all the stuff in the news recently is interesting. It is also kind of the stuff that we are bringing to the market with this, sparse math approach that also is, I think, are going to be key to enabling those very powerful algorithms, but also satisfy, all the constraints that real products really need to have.
Okay, let me make sure I'm kind of following. So is it new hardware that's providing the ability for, as in your words, more math?
Yeah, absolutely. It's new hardware, is sort of, yeah, at all levels, right? So new hardware, right? Let's think about the whole deep learning revolution, right? Which was around like the 2012 time frame. It was a convergence of trends that came together, right? Kind of, I mean, to the people who were researching and really leading the way, it maybe wasn't surprising, but to a lot of the world, it was surprising, right? And it was surprising because you had new kinds of hardware which had sort of matured around graphics, right? These are the GPUs, graphics processing units. People, gamers demanded more and more performance. They want their games to look great. They want it to run at fast frame rates, so it's very sort of it's not laggy, etc. Um, the other side is like we had like the internet come online. We had a lot of data, come online and be available, and where the AI, the intelligence part came together was like, well, actually now we can run these sort of bigger algorithms because we have the hardware to do it, and we have the data available to sort of teach these algorithms what to do, right? So you have all sorts of innovations that kind of are converging together to enable this. This is actually kind of one of our core points as a company is, we differentiate not just on the hardware level. Like, of course, we think it special hardware. It can skip zeros. It can, it has nice representations, compressed representations for algorithms that really compress them down. But we also innovate at the software level. We can say like, well, of your huge like artificial brains, which parts of it are actually dedicated to this, separating speech from noise problem, right? Anything that's not really contributes to that, you don't have to worry about that, right? So you can zero them out, and then when you deploy the hardware, you get all the benefits. So it's really that combination. You have to do great software, you have to have great hardware, and then yeah, when you put them together appropriately, then that's when they can deliver the feature. We're sort of not in the era of computing where they can kind of develop independently. That was maybe the 90s and the aughts, right? Where it's like, um, you know, Intel and TSMC are going to continue to release next generation, processors or next generation, fabrication technologies where everything shrinks and everything gets more efficient, heat, you get more density, some more compute in an area, right? All those trends are sort of are not around anymore. So you have to do other kinds of optimizations like we're doing when it comes to the hardware and software together to deliver the value.
Okay. I think I'm following. So, obviously, just trying to wrap my head around, what's different here in 2025 that was different in 2022, And so I think that it's helpful for me and for the audience to kind of understand that like these are incremental improvements that are compounding
Yep,
and, kind of like you said, with deep learning, you have these disparate trends that all sort of eventually converge and then it creates this kind of explosion in efficiency.
exactly.
So I guess the question is like, is that imminent or are we still a few more of these trend maturations coming together? I guess in your
Well,
view.
I think it's time for that next step change in the hearing world. So, if you look at the marketings, right, sort of AI has been around for a little bit, a few years, especially in the hearing aid space, right? And you can sort of think of maybe the previous generation. I don't know if it was first generation. I don't want to think it was first generation. The first generation was maybe like your hearing device might sense the various kinds of environments is in, and then change some configurations accordingly, so change the balance of the existing settings, right? That is, that's some amount of intelligence here. What's now it looks like becoming possible, and we're starting to see some products, include these features, is that you really have the sort of real time in the loop, that audio path directly what you hear, and then have the AI process that, so that exactly that separation of speech and noise live, right? That seems to be a feature that is coming online, and we're seeing a lot of variations of it too. Like, maybe in gaming, you can change your voice or change how things sound, right? And your party speakers get the karaoke mode where you want to suppress the vocals so you can sing over that, or suppress guitar so you can do that. So all these things are sort of new features that sort of the AI enables, right? And then for the hearing, yeah, it's that speech and noise sound, which is oftentimes the number one sort of complaint that people have, right? So as opposed to AI being a nice little, okay, if you tweak some settings, now it's sort of core to the main sort of audio path, your main experience, right? To essentially make it better and deliver, allow you to have those kinds of social interactions in noisy environments that you might have enjoyed in the past.
So, if the idea is that you have more of like a real-time feedback system, what's your thought in terms of what's that sort of reinforcement cycle look like from the patient's perspective, the hearing aid wearer's perspective? I mean, are they going to be influencing, again, because I feel like the primary use case I hear people talk about with regards to AI in hearing healthcare is improving, the ability to parse speech from noise.
Yeah.
What is that? How is the model learning, based on the user of what is, you know what I mean? I guess
Yeah.
is the user influencing the feedback cycle in any way, I guess is the question.
Yeah. For most systems, actually not really. This is really more how the product developers and technology providers have set it up, right? Where, there is when you're building these systems, you essentially just try to teach it the breadth of human experience, right? Where you say, okay, here's all the areas where all the kinds of things that you might hear in the world. Here's what you care about. Here's what you don't care about. Only pass through what you care about, which is usually going to be speech, right?
Mm.
Um, there may be some systems, and this is kind of up to the product developer that try to take a sort of live, adaptive approach to things. Like, what if you're in an environment where you've never heard this before, right? How do you handle that? So we see a couple different approaches to doing that. Yes, there are some systems which try to create a representation to get a handle on that, and then maybe do something with that, either let it through or not. Um, but there are also ones where this is more, how do you get that feedback back from the user experience back to the product developer so that they can tweak their system. Basically, a lot of the product from a product developer perspective, you want your stuff to work the first time, right? Like the first encounter of anything, right? So you want to try to make what you've built your AI model on sort of as broad as possible in terms of all the
Mm.
noises, because you can imagine sort of the challenge of having different users have very different experiences depending on sort of what they've learned in the field or not, right? So, right, it's I do see some challenges to sort of the learning on the fly approaches, and if you can do them sort of you know 100% of the time or 99% of the time just offline, that allows you to have that consistency, which companies value because that's their brand experience. But yeah, it's these things are at least not possible. So maybe that's going back to your earlier question is like, what is possible now versus then.
Yeah.
So all these approaches are now possible, and sort of the question is, okay, which ones of them are going to succeed in the market? Which ones will customers like? And then which ones will sort of be like, okay, that was a good thing to try, but there wasn't really great adoption, or there was inconsistency, and that's not great for their customer experience. We'll see. We'll see. We talk again in another year, and then we'll have a lot more to report back on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's like one of those things that I guess people are just kind of asking, like, when will we start to really see this? And you do see products that are coming to market, hearing aids that are coming to market that are touting some of these different feature sets and all that. So it does seem like we're kind of right on the cusp of this becoming kind of a new, aspect of hearing aids is the more intelligent, adaptive aspect to them of being able to do some of this real time sort of filtering out of specific sounds and then having sort of like a large model that they're compiling all the data that's going to be able to then inform them of, what to, it's going to help to educate, I guess, the devices as to what's what, what's speech, what's background noise, ambient noise.
Yeah.
And so I guess the thought is that they're only going to just compound in their intelligence more or less and sophistication in being able to identify these things accurately.
Right, exactly, exactly. It's like, one of the nice things is that because one of the nice things for the product developers is that because there's these new hardware fabrics available, like ours, they can update the software, right? When it's out in the field, right? And so, um, because they have this ability to continuously learn on the back end, right? When say the user encounters a scenario where maybe the device performed or did not perform according to what they expected, the product company can take that back, take the info back, maybe collect a little bit of data, and then say, hey, you know, HQ model, please learn this and make sure that you handle this correctly next time. And then we'll just push out a little update to the customer, and then the customer, they kind of get a free, well, encrypted device, but they could get an upgrade to their system, where it continually improves, right, with time, right. It's not so much you buy it and it's fixed and it'll never change, and you have to buy a new one. Although that is a business model where you could make that into a subscription, but yeah, it's an option now for product developers and customers to sort of negotiate on sort of how they want the value delivered, and what they want the upgrade cycle to be, and how much in the hardware, how much in the software. And yeah, we'll see.
It's really, I mean, it's very cool to hear about, there is like sort of this whole ecosystem that is, more or less acting as suppliers to the hearing aid manufacturers, and these kind of like specialty um, add-ons, or I guess however you would describe them, augmentations, chip designs, whatever. I guess for me, my question to you would be like, um, how do you sort of see these next few years playing out, in terms of, clearly it sounds like we're going to just have, the genie is out of the bottle. Like we're only going to be probably seeing more robust use cases when you can have this like higher degree of sophistication and intelligence in the device itself. What does that ultimately start to look like in the next few years as more and more hearing aids, consumer technology, earbuds, like all these things just get smarter?
Yeah, I think we'll see, that figure that I quoted earlier, where it's like, of the fraction of the population that, has, some hearing loss, whether it's, actual like, degradation of hair cells, or in the neurological area, versus the adoption of hearing devices, hearing aids, etc. I think you'll see that gap start to close, right? Because these features, they might just be available in things like, earbuds. The hearing aids themselves, they would do a better job at delivering sort of what you would expect from a hearing aid, just off the consumer is like, yeah, you advertise to me that it's going to improve my hearing. Well, I better have a great experience when I go and, hang out with my friends. I better, it'd be like, like 10 or 20 years past, right? I think you'll also see, so that's just from the sort of the numbers perspective. I think you'll also see an interesting, um, set of experiments in terms of the products, right? So we've mostly been focused on like, yeah, hearing aids and a little bit on earbuds, right? But we're also seeing some emergence of other product form factors that are sort of being tried maybe against. Things like, okay, well, what if you couple the sort of the hearing aid capability not just into a normal like consumer earbud, or if you can put it into one of these sort of smart glasses. This is another category that's starting to emerge, right? So some of the hyperscalers have theirs, some of the mega glasses companies have theirs. Oftentimes these are sort of more vision focused, but some of them are also thinking about the audio experience, right? And can you enhance sort of what you hear in the world as well, right? Because one of the other limiting factors in terms of hearing aid adoption that we hear from the product developers and for customers is that there is a bit of stigma around it, right? People don't want to be seen with something hanging out their ear for whatever reasons. Like we're comfortable with glasses, we're not comfortable here. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. But you know, Customer's always right. And so if there are other form factors that are more sort of appealing, and perhaps more fashionable, like it's not just a piece of technology. It's sort of expression of yourself, right? This is what like any sort of fashion or jewelry is, right? If you can sort of link those together, that might be a pretty compelling offering there, right? Where not only just serves that utilitarian purpose of helping you see better or hear better, but it also it looks like you want to look. Yeah, so that could be cool too. Um, and then you know that should also feed into sort of the better adoption in terms of um, you know who could benefit from the technology and who actually uses it. And then hopefully that'll be great. It'll be great if you sell this in the real sort of high level metrics, right? Of like, okay, people are basically having better quality of life for longer, right? That's ultimately I think would be a success for the overall field if that was if we could do that.
For sure. No, I find this all to be very, very interesting, and kind of in line with what I'm thinking too. So as we come to the close here, I want to give you a chance to really, for people that are listening that could potentially be partners or, work with you in some capacity, just quick, high level, soundbite about what makes FemtoSense unique, and I guess like a compelling partner.
Yeah, so if you want to have the most efficient and performant sort of AI chip in your product, like a hearing aid or smart glasses or something like that, definitely reach out to us. We are very active in these spaces when it comes to not just providing the chip, but also the full on solution. We have the AI offerings where it comes to that sort of separate speech and noise. We're actually about to release some full on hearing aid solution suites with our partners. Sure, I can highlight, one of our partners, Soundworld Solutions, based in Chicago. They are about to sort of release kind of the first, sort of reference design based off one of their existing products that incorporate AI, like our AI chip and then the algorithms and the hearing aid solution into their reference design, which can then be offered as a full-on hearing aid solution for people who will assemble hearing aids and brand them and ultimately sell them to the customers. So we like them. They've been around for almost 20 years now, I think. Sold out or been in their design has been like hundreds of thousands of hearing aid designs. And so, yeah, they really know the hearing space. And then what we're bringing to the table in this overall collaboration is sort of the expertise in the AI space, right? And that's the algorithms, the software, and the hardware, of course, right? And so together, you can make a dent in delivering these AI capabilities in a sort of solution and product form factor that customers can actually access, whether through other brands and the licensing, or yeah, if they want to try it out themselves. They can definitely pick up a few, hopefully within this year.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting new day here in this space. I mean, I think that if I think providers should be looking at this with a lot of optimism, because I think that ultimately this spells higher patient satisfaction rates.
Yeah.
I think that we're kind of now trying to figure out how do you move it up from 90% to 98%, and there's a confluence of things that are probably pushing things down a little bit to keep them kind of flat where they've been, but it seems like a lot of that, growth, if you will come from some of these advancements when ultimately you're gonna enable the devices to get just a lot more intelligent as to what their real-time environments are like, and then kind of that live tuning, in a variety of different ways is just it seems like that's where things are heading, and you can already start to kind of see, it just seems like people are as happy as they've ever been with their hearing aids. There's obviously still stigma and stuff like that that's associated with it, and that is probably, the culprit or a portion of the culprit for why the adoption rates haven't, jumped a whole lot. But it does kind of feel like in some ways it's one of these things that recently people that I feel like have gotten some of the newer versions of hearing aids really are kind of being blown away by them, and we're at the like early stages of this. So it's very exciting to think about what hearing aids in particular might look like in a few years as more and more of your type of technology kind of comes into the fold and integrates with some of these, larger brands. Um, because I it's that's how we're gonna hear, we hear all the time AI powered hearing aids and all that. Well, this is actually how that kind of comes to be.
Right, right. Yeah, every sort of generation of technology, right, when it first comes on the scene, there's going to be not everything will be right the first time, right? That's always something that we need to keep in mind, but it will get better, right? So when the first DSCs entered hearing aids, right, they were great. They of course had their issues too, and likewise you're going to see the same thing here with these AI technologies. Is that there's going to be a lot of experimentation, right? And ultimately, the customer is going to be the one who determines which approaches sort of succeed in the market, right? It's ultimately gets to that sort of consumer experience, basically the reviews, right? The referrals, right? When people start talking to their friends and community about it, then that's when you know that, okay, this is a very promising approach, right? But you have to try various things, right? There's many ways to do it. We're here to really help support our hearing aid, uh, you know, OEMs, ODMs, sort of, and manufacturing partners do that exploration to provide them with the sort of starting point with here's the AI solutions, here's the hearing aid solutions that you guys can build from, and then it will be sort of this kind of dialogue between the end customer and then the brands and the technology providers to ultimately kind of converge on what the hearing aid is like 5 or 10 years from now will be. But I of course would be willing to bet that that's going to be a lot better than even what we have
Yeah.
today, right? Especially because sort of this new technology is emerging, and that is becoming sort of it's really starting to get market tested now and adopted.
Couldn't have said it better. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on today. Really excited to watch, things continue to progress in this side of the market and watch FemtoSense in particular, kind of make its way into these devices. And hopefully we'll really start to see this stuff manifest in the market in the coming years. And, hopefully these products are as highly touted as or they end up being as awesome as they are being touted to be right now.
Yes, yeah. Hopefully, it sounds as good as we're here for talking about them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody who tuned in here to the end. We will chat with you next time. Cheers.
Okay. Thank you.